Live from Vegas, it's Paddock Project. I'm your host, Tiggy, and I am here with none other than Caitlin. Caitlin, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are diving into an interview with a very special guest, James Hinchcliffe.
I'm so excited. I am obsessed with Hinch and his
amazing.
commentating. He's so funny.
He's so good. So yes, for those of you who don't know, he is an Indycar commentator and an F1 commentator, former Indy driver, also Dancing with the Stars finalist, like all the things. He's amazing. But we want to dive into a little bit of an intro. So Caitlin, you're an Indycar girl.
Yes,
Tell me about how you feel about some Indy flair being, integrated into the F1 paddock here.
I know a lot of fans, especially European fans, are probably not the happiest about it. They hear somebody who sounds American, he's not, he's Canadian, on the mic, and they're like, what is going on? I think that it adds something to F1 that was missing when you have, so many races in North America, and IndyCar is a North American series. Having somebody with that other depth of knowledge, but also I would say more like cultural knowledge as opposed to like, let's say British media, be a part of your global team. I think that's really important. And also Hinch is funny and great and knowledgeable. So
he definitely brings some good flair. I love hearing him on the waves. So as an Indy girl, give me your best IndyCar pitch, because most of our listeners are F1 fans. They're also Indy fans too, but let's hear your best Indy pitch.
I think there's two things as to why I love IndyCar. And I'm a new fan. I am not out here pretending I've been a fan for years and years of IndyCar. The first thing is that the cars do not fall apart as easily as Formula Series cars, so Formula 1, 2, whatever. They could crash and be back out on track 10 laps later. Yeah, they're 10 laps down, but they do that. That's a standard. Everybody is finishing the race if they can. So there's more action in that way because people can come back out and fight to win, especially on ovals where there's like hundreds of laps. The other thing is, as a fan, access. In Formula 1, we know that it is very difficult. It is a black box. It's a closed door. And obviously there's people like Tiggy who are trying to change that. And, giving fans a good experience and insight into that black box. But in IndyCar, you can pay $20 and be in the paddock.
It's amazing. That's all you need. Mic drop. That's the pitch.
That was all to say IndyCar is amazing, and you can pay $20 to meet your favorite drivers.
And Pato did my hot lap last night, so
I saw that. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I have lots to say. It was incredible. I feared for my life, but I also felt so safe at the same time. And he just, he
is like
no
known
fear
in IndyCar to have some of the best reflexes, and like out of any of the drivers. And he has also held my phone before while I taught him how to use an app called Fanamp. So that's our flex. Is that we're both friends with Pato.
All right, well, let's jump into the interview. Thank you guys for listening. It's a fun conversation, so stay tuned. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Paddock Project. I'm here with some very lovely guests. This is Tiggy. We are here live in Vegas at the SiriusXM studio in the Wynn, and I'm here joined first by Caitlin.
Hi, Tiggy. Thank you so much for having me. Just to give some quick background, I am the head of marketing at a fan startup in Formula 1 called Fanamp. And we also do some IndyCar stuff, which is related to the next guest that we are about to introduce.
Yeah, so drum roll, please. Our guest today is none other than James Hinchcliffe, a.k.a. Hinch, a.k.a. IndyCar driver extraordinaire, a.k.a. Dancing with the Stars runner-up.
Yeah.
What don't you do, honestly? We're going to have you introduce yourself because, honestly, I can't do it justice. You do so many things. But right now, you're an IndyCar commentator. You are also an F1 commentator. So we're so happy to have you here in Vegas, no less.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here with us.
No, thank you so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure. It's always fun to get to work F1 weekends. And as you say, here in Vegas, it's kind of extra special. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So let's start. You've done a lot in your life.
Yes.
Who in your words, is James Hinchcliffe?
Oh, wow. That's deep. That's deep.
We're not starting with the softballs here.
No, you're diving right in. You didn't ask me what I had for breakfast or anything.
Okay, what'd you have for breakfast?
I didn't actually have breakfast. I don't like breakfast. Who is James Hinchcliffe? The luckiest guy in the world, if I'm honest. I mean, getting to, a lot of 5-year-old kids want to be professional racing drivers, right? You grow up, I feel like every 5-year-old boy wants to be a firefighter, an astronaut, or a race car driver. I just never grew up. I never had to grow up, I guess. I was lucky in that sense and got to, fulfill a dream and follow my passion to be a driver and race an IndyCar for 11 years. And it's funny because I always said racing didn't work out, my backup plan was going to be, I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to write for like Autosport magazine. I wanted to do motorsports media, I guess. Well, my backup plan became my second career. So I don't know how I'm getting so lucky and just kind of keep checking them off. But no, just a Canadian kid that loves racing.
I love that.
So speaking of growing up, you've said a few times that your dad was just a huge, huge racing fan. You didn't necessarily have racing in the family, but at some point you decided that, you know what, I want to do this, not just be a fan. Do you remember that one moment where you were like, this is it, this is what I want to do?
That's such a tough question because I wasn't one of those kids that, even when I started, so yeah, Dad was a massive fan. I got my fandom from him. I was a fan of racing long before I ever drove anything. But I got a go-kart for my 9th birthday. And even then, I did not have aspirations or goals of being a professional driver. At 9 years old, I'm like, that's not a real job. No one actually gets to do that. It was just it was a hobby. It was fun. Mm-hmm. But at about 14, a guy that ran kind of a professional karting team kind of said, hey, you're doing pretty well at this. You should try this level of the sport. And that's where all the kids that are trying to be professional drivers go. And even then, I'm like, okay, let's see what this is and how it goes. But it really wasn't until the first time I got into a race car, because karts and cars are very different and the skill doesn't always translate. And when I got into a race car for the first time, I was underage. I kind of did it illegally, if I'm honest. I'm supposed to be 16. I was 15.
That's off the record, by the way.
Totally off the record. I think statute of limitations, I'm pretty sure, is over on that.
We're far past that,
yeah,
millennial.
we established my age earlier off air, so we're well clear on that. But no, it was that first car race. It was a 3-day weekend. We had a race Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Sunday I won. And so I was at that point being like, okay, maybe there's actually a chance that this could work. And that was kind of the moment where I believed that it was something that my dad and I should try to do.
So you've brought your dad with you through the years then, you would
100%.
say.
I mean, he was my first sponsor, he was my mechanic as a karter. And then he managed me for a long time throughout my career. And obviously you can't do anything in this sport without an incredible support system. And for me, it was my whole family, but it started obviously with my dad. Yeah.
Your number one fan.
Very much so. Yeah.
So talk to us about your IndyCar journey and how that came about and your time in IndyCar and then transitioning now into, being an analyst, commentating. Take us through a little bit of that journey.
Well, how long's the show?
We got all day.
Okay, let me open with racing is the worst sport on earth. I'm gonna preface the next story with that.
Can I hard disagree on that?
Yeah,
You can.
I feel like Tiki was just saying it was the best sport in the world maybe 30 minutes ago.
Okay, sorry. Let me qualify this a little bit. It's the worst sport to be an athlete.
Okay.
Because if you're like incredibly good at golf, you're going to play in the PGA. If you're like some phenom high school basketball player, somebody will find you and you will play in the NBA if that's what you want to do. The best racing driver on earth probably never made a dime driving race cars. It is such a difficult sport to break into. The barriers to entry, the cost, all of those things, the opportunity. I mean, look, the top of the sport is here. There's 20 drivers in Formula One right now. And how many players are there in the NFL? 1,500, something like that. I mean, the opportunities are so small. It's a global sport. Everyone on earth is trying to get there. And the timing, the opportunity, the money, let's call a spade, that you need to do it, it's so difficult. Mm-hmm. So I say that because I was kind of in one of those situations where it wasn't going to happen for me. I did all the junior categories. I had success. You won. You got attention of an IndyCar team. I got to do a test for an IndyCar team. Sweet. Showed up to the test. They had already hired one driver. He was a 10-year veteran. They're like, hey, we want a rookie to be his teammate. You're on the short list. Let's do a test. So I did a test. Sorry, I'm just going to say it. Killed it. Ended up faster than the other guy, right? And they're like, sweet, this is great. I think that's it. Career made, right? And
where's the money?
They offer me a contract. They're like, here's the problem. We don't have a sponsor for the car yet. But one of the classic racing sort of chicken and egg things is, excuse me, when you go into a sponsor, they're like, well, who's the driver? Well, we can't hire the driver until we have the money from a sponsor. So it's a sort of chicken and egg thing. Sorry. So I signed the contract because I had no other options. Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, they'll get us. Now they have the driver, they can go get a sponsor. Well, they didn't get a sponsor. Oh my gosh. We had a day by which we had to have money in the bank to make it for the first race at St. Pete. And we had 4 months to do it. That day came, that day went, and we had no money. So I had a contract and I had no car. Okay. And I went to St. Pete with my team polo and I stood on pit wall and watched everyone else race. And I thought my career was over.
Wow.
Because I didn't know I couldn't do anything. There was nothing else in my control that I could have done. We tried so hard to find the money. When it came to driving the car, I had to prepare. I executed when it was my time to do the job, and it still wasn't enough.
Just feels cruel.
It's so cruel. It's the worst sport to be an athlete. But the stars aligned amazingly. Literally the Saturday night of that first race weekend in St. Pete, we got a call from one of the companies that we'd been talking to. They said, hey, we're in. And I made my debut 2 weeks later in race number 2.
No way. What was that company?
Yeah.
It was Sprott Asset Management.
Wow.
Eric Sprott, Canadian,
Yes.
looking after
Yeah.
Canadians.
Asset management.
Canada.
Thank you, Eric Sprott. He literally made my career. So yeah, from there, I had an incredible run. I got to drive for some incredibly storied teams, some incredible teammates, had some awesome races, had some days I'm really proud of, days I'm not so proud of. But that's the nature of the sport. And, the kind of classic line in racing is, once you start thinking about stopping, you should probably stop. And I kind of reached that point in 2021. And I had always, as I said earlier, motorsports media was kind of always something I wanted to look at post driving. And NBC had the TV rights for IndyCar at the time, and I'd done a little bit of work for them in 2020 when I had a partial season. And so when I was thinking of stopping, I called them up and said, hey, I'm thinking of stopping. And they're like, hey, here's a contract. It's yours if you want it. And that was kind of how the transition started.
Do you have to find a sponsor for that one?
That one, no. See, it's easier to be a television commentator than it is to be a racing driver. That is
Except
for sure.
when they switch to a different
Yeah,
network.
that's
So
complicated.
TBD.
Yeah,
TBD.
yeah. It was like, get into TV. It'll be great. It's so much less stress. You don't have to worry. You can do it for years and years. First contract, it switches broadcasters, out of a job. It's just like being a driver.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Hey, like you said, the worst sport to be a driver, and now maybe a commentator.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, maybe. I don't know. I should have just been an accountant. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, the last person that I've heard of that was like, I'm going to be an accountant, became one of the biggest DJs in the world right now, John Summit. So if you didn't know that.
There you go.
As a student right now taking accounting, you do not want to be an accountant.
I remember taking accounting as well. Terrible. Do not recommend. So obviously, NBC approached you. You started working in IndyCar full-time as a commentator. What would a typical weekend look like in IndyCar versus F1? Because obviously they're so dramatically different as a commentator.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, they are very different series in a lot of ways. There's obviously, there's the big fundamental differences. But at the end of the day, racing's racing. And 95% of it's actually pretty similar. The biggest difference between calling, an IndyCar race for NBC on network TV versus Formula One on the F1 TV app, a streaming service, essentially, is you don't have some of the restrictions that come with network TV. Network TV is very defined timing, commercial breaks, like everything's, I don't want to say more structured because that makes it sound like the F1 stuff's not structured, which isn't true or fair. But you do have more limits and you are a little bit more restricted. The job is very similar. You show up on a setup day and you walk the paddock, you run into people, you try to get the stories, you try to talk to drivers, get some feeling on who likes the track, who doesn't, who feels good this weekend, who doesn't. It's a little more complicated in F1 because with different cars, certain cars are suited to certain tracks better and things like that. But yeah, I mean, our job is a lot of research. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of prep coming into the weekend, making sure you know all the stories and all the talking points. And, you've got 3 hours of practice to fill. Practice sessions aren't always the most exciting thing.
It seems like one of the harder
No.
parts of the
It's
job.
absolutely one of the most hard parts of the
The
job.
track commentators went silent during FP2 for a while yesterday. We were just sitting there and it was just dead silence.
For sure. It is tough. It is tough.
So what'd you have for breakfast this morning?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm really excited to have a nice salad.
So as a commentator, talk us through what it's like watching a race as a commentator versus a fan. Like, are there different things you need to pay attention to? Like, how does your brain work when you're watching a race?
Well, yeah, when you're a fan, you're just watching the race. You just kind of get to enjoy the entertainment, right? When you're commentating on it, you have to help create the entertainment. You're telling a story, and racing is a very complicated sport. The fundamentals are simple: drive fast, finish first, right? Excuse me, but there's a lot of intricacies to that, and so our job from the booth is to really kind of explain what's happening beyond the obvious. So-and-so is passing so-and-so. Okay, why? How? Give a little bit of insight into what the driver's going through, what the decisions the teams are making, how they come to those decisions, things like that. And so it's ultimately everybody in the booth is also a fan. So we're enjoying the racing, but we also have this responsibility to make sure that we are kind of conveying what's happening in a way that everyone from a seasoned F1, fan expert that they can tolerate and stomach, but also that a neophyte, somebody new to the sport, knows nothing about F1, can understand and follow along with. So there's a careful balance you got to strike there.
That's hard to bridge. And how much data or how much extra stuff do you have at your disposal that we as fans do not? Like, we see the radios on TV, the select ones that get broadcast, but do you have access to more?
So if you subscribe to F1 TV, there is quite a bit of data available. It is not. Full disclosure, they do pay my bills, but
they could pay ours as well if they're feeling generous.
There you go.
We wouldn't say no.
We'll run it up the flagpole.
Take it.
But no, so on it, legitimately, fans do have access to most of the same stuff. Yeah. There are a couple pages that are kind of on the internal broadcast network that are data pages that we have that you might not have. So, we can tell not just what tire compounds a car is on. You can see that visually, right? But we can tell you how many laps are on that set. We can tell you which set of softs that is, how many new sets they have left, how many, things like that. So there's a little bit more information, microsectors, things. Actually, I think you even get that on F1 TV. So there's quite a bit of information on the app.
I wouldn't know. I never click on the data channel.
But we have 6-8 screens up all at once.
Wow.
And so that's part of the challenge is you're trying to monitor all that stuff, but you can't take your eye off the program monitor too much because if something happens and you're busy trying to figure out who's on what tires or whatever, you can miss something. So that's part of the reason you have 3 people in the booth is one guy's always at least looking at the screen and can comment on what's happening.
Or if you're you can start using IndyCar terms on F1 TV.
Yeah.
And
how's that
the other
going
can
down?
clarify.
Yeah. I
Sticker
got
set.
busted for that a couple times.
It was very funny.
Yeah.
We had a great time talking about it on Fan Amp.
I maintain. I'm going to stick with it. Do you know the one that I actually got the most flack about?
Saying LOL out loud like that on broadcast.
Did I say LOL?
Yes, you did. You said LOL.
He's not a millennial.
God, I don't even remember that. That's a very ugly thing. Oh, man.
Sorry, please continue.
Okay, what did you get the most
do
flack
that was
for?
worse than that?
So yeah, you mentioned the stickers thing, right? Like that's a new set of tires in IndyCar racing. In Aussie V8s they call them greens.
Okay.
New tires are green, so a set of green. Like Scott McLaughlin would always refer to a set of greens. We're like,
Yes,
no,
yes.
What are you saying?
Don't do that here. But straightaway.
Oh.
Evidently, Europeans don't say straightaway. It's
I've
just
heard people say straight away so many times.
it's just straight.
Okay,
I
that's false.
got lambasted last year. I think it was in Mexico. I did some trackside hit and I said straight away, and the comments were shot. They're like,
What?
Straight
I've
away.
heard people say straight away, like specifically British commentators say straight away so many times.
I don't know.
That's a silly one.
That one I'm like,
No.
okay,
You know
sticker's
what?
fine if you don't use that term. I'm like, it's a straightaway. Like, how is that not? I don't get it.
They heard how I know you're not American, obviously. They heard how American you sounded and
Yeah.
decided that was the moment.
They
That
got
was
a
it,
latch
yeah.
on.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
They
I
decided
guarantee
to
it.
pick that one as
Yeah.
their beef. That was funny.
Yeah. On that note, obviously, like we've been talking about, you have an IndyCar background. How did you end up in F1 TV? What happened there?
I don't know. Not
answer.
Still
entirely
figuring
sure.
it
It's not what you know; it's who you know. I raced in a series called A1GP back some time ago. I can see by your face that you're too young to know what that is, which just further deepens the feeling of me being very old in this room.
This was not the intention.
No, it's fair. No,
today.
it's fair.
This is actually the title of the episode is going to be
Guess James Hinchcliffe's age.
Old question mark. That'll be it.
Oh, and the comments will say yes. No, look it up. A1GP was a brilliant, brilliant championship. But there was a guy that was the play-by-play commentator for that series named Ben Edwards, and he was working with F1 TV a few years ago. And one of the cool things about F1 TV is, if you're watching F1 in the States or in Canada, you're getting the Sky feed, right? The Sky feed from England. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's so British biased, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, yeah, they're making it for a British audience. Like, that's a British company making it for Britain. It should be. That's fine.
Yeah.
We're buying a feed for someone else. You can't be mad at them for being biased. The whole purpose of F1 TV is to be a very kind of global and all-inclusive broadcast that's, a little more neutral, I guess. And part of the strategy to that was to bring in, a rotating cast of people from all different parts of the world. And so, yes, it is still core British, but, David Valsecchi comes in, and we've had Julien Simon Chanson, who's, obviously a French race engineer. And they wanted a North American voice. And so Ben was like, well, I used to work with this kid Hinch, and now he's kind of moved into broadcasting, so maybe give him a call. So I got a text from Ben and said, hey, F1 TV guys are interested in having a conversation. Would you be interested? And that was it. Started 3 races in 22. I did 6 races last year, 8 races this year, and who knows?
And who knows what's going to happen because of the contracts. So maybe all of them.
Who knows? Who knows?
So let's switch gears to the current season. I mean, we are blessed right now with such an incredible season that we have not had in Formula One for a long time. And because we're in Vegas, we have to ask, and you're North American, for lack of a better term.
Thank you.
What do you think about Vegas? What do you think about F1 coming into the States and, North America more broadly? How do you think about that shift, especially from an IndyCar perspective?
Well, look, it's huge. I am very much of the camp that, rising tides lifts all ships. And so I don't think from the IndyCar side, it should be looked at as a negative that F1's popularity has exploded here. I think we have seen a knock-on effect in a positive way to IndyCar. Were you an IndyCar fan first or an F1 fan first?
F1 fan first. Long Beach this year was my first race ever, and I learned the entire series as best as I could right before.
Right. But so case in point, right? Like we are getting fans on the IndyCar side because of this kind of global increase in interest in motorsports. I also think there's a lot of things we can learn on the IndyCar side from how F1 has experienced this growth. So there's positives to be taken out of that. But I love it. I mean, I've been an F1 fan since I was 5 years old. So it's cool being able to have those conversations with people more often now because more and more people are paying attention to it, are following it, are knowledgeable about it. And the fact that they managed to shut down the strip and hold a race here is insane. Like, it's incredible. So
our Vegas.
Yeah. For context,
queen.
for the listeners, I grew up here 18 years of my life. This is the coolest thing ever. I know locals are a little back and forth on it. We will talk about that later. But as an F1 fan, it is the coolest thing. It's my home race.
Yeah.
I get to do cool things. And I love it. I love it so much. So, yeah.
All right. So for this season, you have this thing, Hinch's Heroes. We want to ask you, for the 2024 season so far, who's Hinch's hero and who's your anti-hero?
Oh man, that's tough. So it's funny. I was asked to do a sort of like mid-season report during the summer break, right? So I do this Hinch's Heroes column on F1.com. So every race I pick 5 drivers that had a good weekend, and it's not always the top 5, right? And so I'm like, all right, so this could be a good way to look at, the season so far to kind of get a sense of who my heroes of the first half of the season were. I actually went through and looked at who had the most appearances on the list. Nico Hülkenberg.
Yes.
Okay.
Was actually number
King.
1. Yeah. He, so, I mean, if we're just going on statistics, I haven't done it since then, so I'm not sure where he stands now, but hero of the season, I'm gonna say it this way. My hero of the season is not a driver, but it's a class of driver, which is rookie.
Yes.
The rookies this year have just been unbelievable. What Behrman's done, what Colapinto's done, what Lawson's done. I know Lawson's, I guess, not technically a rookie anymore, and I guess Colapinto wasn't either, but you know what I mean.
Give them half points. They're like half rookies. Together they're one rookie.
Right, exactly. Exactly. But no, it's been super, super impressive seeing these young kids come in. And again, not all of them have been like lighting it up in F2. It's not necessarily like, I'll be honest, I think I'd heard Franco Colapinto's name once mentioned before the press release came out. And he's been an absolute sensation.
Yeah. And he has some of the strongest support at races.
Yeah.
I mean, the Argentinian fans are crazy for him.
Brazil
and it's amazing.
Was wild.
Yeah,
it was
I'm
awesome
sure.
to see.
Yeah. I honestly think his addition into F1, obviously mid-season, people were very, unhappy. And then he just re-energized everybody. He re-energized F1 fans everywhere, not just Argentina. Like, I am obsessed with Franco Colapinto too. I'm not Argentinian by any means. So,
and I do want to like also qualify it by saying that I hate mid-season driver swaps.
Yeah.
I, having been in the seat, it's the worst. I feel so bad for Daniel. I feel so bad for Logan. These guys had contracts. On the one hand, you want to at least be able to say that you saw out your deal. On the other hand, it is competitive sport, right? And every other sport benches players. So racing shouldn't necessarily have, a pass on that. So I see both sides of the coin, but I do hurt for those guys. Like, they're both great dudes. They're both great drivers. It just didn't work out for, whatever the reasons were. So yeah, I don't want to make it look like it's, hey, the new kids are better. It's not that, but they have done a very impressive job.
Well, and that's part of having only 20 seats in a sport. Like, there's going to be turnover, and it's fun to see the new faces on the block, but you have a really short amount of time to prove yourself, and it's a cutthroat world out here.
You're only as good as your last race.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the classic saying in motorsports, and it's so true. And yeah, we've seen the results of it this year.
Mm-hmm. And even then, you could be amazing and have these great races, and still, if the money doesn't work out, like we were talking about before, the sponsors aren't there. Sorry. And it's really unfortunate.
It is just, it's the cruel reality of this game, you know, and you get into it knowing that, but it doesn't make it any easier. You accept, it's funny, you accept things like, you could die and your talent is irrelevant, and you accept these things and you still sign up to do it because that's just how cool racing is.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Anti-hero.
I was really hoping that you guys forgot that I hadn't done
we
that.
didn't.
You can make it fun. You don't have to pick on anyone in particular.
Do something silly.
The anti-hero? Well,
you could go the Taylor Swift route.
No. Look, let me, I guess I could say the low point of the season for me in some ways was Monaco. Because of what happened in that race and the fact that guys were literally trying to drive as slow as possible. Yes. That's not racing, right? This is the pinnacle of the sport, and they literally weren't allowed to race. They were driving around 5 seconds off the pace to make it to the end. Like, that one bothered me. So my anti-hero was Monaco this year. Or if you want to blame Pirelli for the way the tires are, I don't know, whatever, all the different issues that came together to make Monaco what it was, it sucks. That's one of the hallmark races. It's, classic. It's one of the favorites of the year, but it was so anticlimactic this year.
Oh,
that's very fair.
Yeah. So switching gears from, I know we've just been talking about the rookies a lot. We have to talk about Max versus Lando. For you, do you think there was ever a real championship going on for WDC, or was Max always going to come back and possibly this weekend clinch the title, save the wing issues that they are currently having?
Right. So I would say there was a chance. It was very slight, and it probably ended a few races ago, to be honest. But it's just been great to see. And if anything, it's given Lando a little bit of that taste of being in the throes of a world championship battle without really having as much on the line.
Yeah.
He was so far behind. It was going to be, a Herculean effort to make it happen. It was going to require not just him performing, but Max and Red Bull struggling, which again, you can't control anybody else. That's the biggest thing in this sport, is you can only focus on yourself. Whatever everyone else is going to do, they're going to do. You have no influence on that. So I think he learned a lot about how to focus on what he was doing, how to perform under that pressure, which is going to serve him well, hopefully next year when he's in the thick of it from, Melbourne and not from, the end of the summer break.
Yeah. So you think Lando has championship opportunities in the future?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Potential.
The problem is Max Verstappen is Max Verstappen. Yeah. That's very unfortunate for the other 19 drivers. Because the level at which he can operate right now it's superhuman. It really is shocking. You look at guys like Lando, like Charles, like Carlos, like Lewis, like George, Oscar, all these guys. They're incredible racing drivers. They're all capable of winning a world championship. Max is just at this freak level right now. And so if he's got a car that can keep him in the fight, it's going to be very hard to beat Max straight up. Yeah. But if Red Bull miss it, which they miss it a couple times this year, we've got a great I cannot wait for 2025.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yes, please.
Do you think it's going to be as close as people speculate?
Yes.
And do you think, as we think about Red Bull, some cracks have started to show this season in a way that they have not in the past couple of years? Do you think that's going to continue in 2025? Are we just starting to see the cracks showing, or are they going to come back strong?
I think they're going to come back strong. What's interesting about that team is when you have that amount of success, people go after your people. And so that team, they've been pillaged from a personnel standpoint. And and that's natural. Like that's a normal part of this cycle of motorsports and how this works. That's nothing against Red Bull. If anything, it's a compliment. People are going after their people because they've had so much success, but they've been operating at such a high level for such a long time. There's been natural turnover in there anyway. So they know how to regroup, how to reset, how to promote from within, how to, poach from other places. They know how to structure their company to be successful. So I don't worry about Red Bull falling off the map. I have confidence that Mercedes is going to get on top of the struggles that they've had. I am surprised it's taken them as long as it has, but I do think they're getting there. And then, McLaren obviously has been at an incredible level since the summer break, and Ferraris, they've ebbed and flowed, but they've figured it out. Next year, we've seen this convergence, right? Red Bull started this year very strong, and everyone thought they were going to win all 24, and now they're probably going to be third in the Constructors' Championship. So, like, a lot can change. 24-race season is very long, but that convergence happened halfway through the season. I think, we'll get to the start of 25. A few teams, a team or two might start a little bit stronger, but I think that convergence is going to happen sooner. And we're going to have this level of competition, I think, for a longer part of the season.
How do you think rookies entering the top teams, thinking specifically Kimi Antonelli, how do you think that's going to impact it, even if Mercedes does have a comeback in terms of, they're engineering the car? Do you think that there's a chance that still might not work out, or do you have full faith in Kimi?
You asked me that question 6 months ago, and it's a different answer, right? So 6 months ago, I'd have been like, yeah, that's a handicap. Having a rookie in the car and a top team, you're trying to develop to the nth degree at this point. All the teams are talking about how this car is near the end of its development cycle. There's very few gains to be made. So you need to find those tiny little bits, which means you need the most precise feedback from the drivers, and throwing a rookie in, that's a disadvantage, especially when he's replacing a 7-time world champion. But then you look at what the rookies have done this year, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't know, maybe they can do it. I don't know. So
if he comes in like Oscar did, he's going to do just fine.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to be very exciting to watch.
Yeah.
So what do you think about Hamilton and how he fares at Ferrari?
I mean, look at how Ferrari's doing right now. If they keep it up, Lewis is one of those guys that when every driver goes out and puts everything on the line every lap of every session, right? That's just the nature of racing drivers, how you're wired. But Lewis, when he's got a car that is talking to him, he can reach that level that Max has. He doesn't live there. Max lives there. Even with a bad car, he'll just do stupid things with it, right? But Lewis is absolutely capable of getting to that level. And when he's happy, when he and his race car are in harmony, he is so good.
Yeah.
And the Ferrari has been phenomenal lately. He knows how to get a team around him. He is such a leader. I think he's going to do great things in that team. Obviously the relationship with Fred goes back a long time, and they're going to hit the ground running, I think. So again, there's so many storylines for 25, but that one I think can have a lot of potential.
Yeah. All right, let's hit some predictions for 2025. We don't hold you to it.
Yeah, that's good. That's going to be impossible. But yes.
Top 3 drivers in finishing order, top 3 constructors.
Oh, man, I don't even know where to start. I mean, it's so hard to bet against Max just because, again, he is just on such a different plane right now. And I think Red Bull's capable. So can Max make it 5 in a row? How about just top 3 without order?
Perfect.
Okay. Max is in the top 3.
Okay.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I do think that Lando has learned enough, and I think that team is operating well, that he'll be in the top 3, and I'll put Lewis in there.
Okay.
So I think it's 3 different manufacturers in the top 3, and for manufacturers, I think Ferrari's got a really good shot at it next year if you look at the completeness of the driver lineup. And look, I hate to say this, but I don't know if we actually know Red Bull's driver lineup yet.
We were going to ask that.
I think Kit Kat might have solidified that, but
let's say it stays. Then you look at the driver lineup. You got obviously Kimi coming into Mercedes. Lando and Oscar are a great duo, but I think Charles and Lewis that's the strongest pairing of those top teams. And that's the thing. Like, you look at the Constructors' Championship right now, Ferrari are in it because Carlos and Charles have been so close to each other and always just right there. Even when they were struggling, they would bring it home 5th and 6th.
Yeah.
They're not having 12th place finishes, not having 10th place finishes. So when you have that super consistent lineup across both cars, even when you're not the fastest car on a weekend, you just bag those points for the constructors, and that's what helps in the long run. So I think Ferrari's got a great shot at constructors next year. They got a great shot this year, but
absolutely. So if you were Red Bull team principal, if you're Christian Horner, who are you putting in that second seat if Checo is no longer?
Okay, so you mean Checo's decided to retire and I'm not choosing to pull Checo out of the perfect?
Exactly.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, you're not going to offend anyone with this.
Yes, if Checo's decided to stop, well, I mean, I would have put Carlos in the car.
Yes.
But
I agree.
that's
assuming he's off the table.
Assuming he's off the table, it's got to be Lawson. I think it's got to be Lawson. He's been in the program. That's the point of the program. He's delivered on track. He's got that edge to him that I think is very Red Bull Racing.
Yes.
Right? It's an edge that I don't think Albon had when he was at Red Bull. I don't think Gasly had when he was at Red Bull. I don't think Checo has. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I just think that environment is very unique. I think it's very specific. And we haven't seen a lot of Liam, but what we've seen of him, he's got that fire in him that might be exactly what, Christian likes to pump up and what could help, push Max a little bit. Not that you need to push Max, but he could be pushed by Max and could respond well to it, or it could blow up in flames. That's the problem.
That's the risk.
It is a double-edged sword, and you don't want to upset
because he is young.
He is young. He doesn't want to. I mean, you get put beside Max Verstappen, especially with the
Can mess with you.
laundry list of drivers who he's destroyed.
Yes.
You want to be the guy that comes out on top, right? Like that's a huge challenge. That's a very appealing challenge for a young, hungry driver.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. If you were to put it to me, I would put Lawson in the car. He's put in his time. He's performed when requested.
What makes you not put Yuki in that seat?
Yeah.
It's a great question. And it's a great question. I'm not sure I have a great answer for it.
It's hard.
I feel like it's a gut reaction for a lot of people to say Liam, though, over Yuki. I think because there have been opportunities where Yuki could have been moved and he hasn't.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of subconsciously just spells it out that it wouldn't be him.
And I don't think Yuki has that same edge that Liam has. Mm-hmm. But again, it's not a bad thing. A lot of drivers don't have that edge. It's a different personality trait, and I just think that will work well in Red Bull. But I mean, Yuki. Look, I'm really happy he's getting the chance to test the RB20 in Abu Dhabi, and maybe he'll blow everybody away, and it'll change the whole course of F1 2025. But I don't have a good answer. I think it's just it's almost self-fulfilling prophecy. They put it out there that he's not getting in that car. And so I don't know.
It calls into question the junior development program a little bit and the VCARB situation.
It does. But look, at the start of the year, VCARB said we're rebranding, we're re-identifying ourselves. We're not the junior team anymore.
That's why they
kept. Yeah, exactly. Well, good. But it's why they kept Dan on in the first place. They want to be their own squad. They want to be their own team. And at the end of the day, look, junior programs are very important, but you're looking for one of the best 20 drivers on earth. If you don't happen to have one of those in your stable, but someone else is available, like fair play. It's like this is a sport. This is about winning. If your stable doesn't have the right person, that's fine. Look elsewhere.
I totally agree. All right,
some people, but yes.
Let's hit some final rapid fire. Caitlin, you want to kick us off?
Sure. We're gonna start off real strong. Elvis impression.
Elvis impression.
Yeah. You don't have to do it, but Pietro Fittipaldi wouldn't do it yesterday, so I think you need a one-up.
Fitty wouldn't do it?
He wouldn't do it. You need to do it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
That was very well done.
It was something.
That was very well done.
It's better than P. Fitty.
Well, he didn't even try, so no.
All right, we're in Vegas. Which F1 driver would you least like to play poker against?
Alonso.
That's such a good answer.
Why?
Alonso, that guy can play mind
He's
games.
a killer.
Like, you want to talk about someone who could bluff and just like absolutely take you down? It is Fernando Alonso 10 times out of 10.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite race you've ever commentated, IndyCar and F1?
Wow.
Or you could do one of each if it's too difficult.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, Sorry, this was supposed to be a rapid fire.
It never is.
So Indy 500 on the IndyCar side for sure. And I can't pick one. I've been so lucky. The last 3 have all been absolute bangers, right? They've been incredible races to the last lap. You know, you had Ericsson v Pato in 22. You had Ericsson v Newgarden 23. Newgarden v Pato 24.
I don't want to talk about 24. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Love Joseph, but no.
Shed a few tears that day.
Incredible races all around. On the F1 side, man, that's tough. I'm a fan of the sport, so I love watching history be made. So like once Max started his kind of tear last year, I was the guy that was like, I want him to win the rest. I want him to win them all.
Okay.
Because I want to say I was there for the most dominant season in history.
That
right?
is fair. That is fair.
But I also like things like first-time winners. So I think Miami, I think Lando's first win, that was a pretty cool one to be there for.
Great.
If I had to pick a race, probably that one.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really nice. I
That
was
was
also
an amazing
there.
one.
I think you were there
I was there as well.
Yeah.
It was so amazing. All right. Who's your favorite fellow commentator? Who do you banter with the best?
Oh man, they're all so good. They're all like
you don't
family.
have to pick a favorite.
No,
but,
I mean,
give
so
us-
I've known Buxton the longest.
Yeah.
And he's been here when I first showed up. I'm not from this world. I'm not an F1 person, right? I'm an F1 fan, and so I had imposter syndrome big time. But he was great, kind of walking me around the paddock, introducing me to people, kind of getting me a little more comfortable with how things work. And Julian Palmer, I knew of him obviously. I'd never met him. Loved working alongside him when we're in the booth together. Learned a ton from him as well. Like Alex Jakes, Laura Winter, Laura Barretto.
All of them.
All of them. They're all so good.
Family.
They're all family. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Current F1 driver on the grid, so the 20 that are here right now, that you think would do well on Dancing with the Stars,
Oh, great question.
or most likely to win, whichever direction you want to go with that. I think I know the answer.
I mean, it's gotta be Carlos.
Oh, that was not
Ooh.
the direction I thought you were going to go.
Yeah.
Our smooth operator.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a
smooth.
12-hour dance party, something like that yesterday.
Yeah, he's got the Latin flair. He could be good at all the the salsas, the sambas, whatever.
I thought you were going to say Fernando Alonso.
No.
Okay.
No. Honestly, it'd be either of the Ferrari boys. I think
Wow.
Charles would be really good in all the frame stuff, all your foxtrots and tangos and stuff like that, and then all the Latin stuff, your salsas, sambas, rumbas. I think it'd be Carlos. I think Team Ferrari. They should both go on.
Okay. Let's
I'm
hit
down
up
for that.
I mean, you know the producers better than we would.
I know
Pitch
exactly.
that.
All right, Colin, let's text you real quick.
Here we go. We know what they're
right.
doing during the off season.
Yeah, exactly.
What was more intimidating, the Indy 500 or the Dancing with the Stars finale?
Well, look, they're both terrifying in their own ways.
Gut reaction.
Gut reaction, more intimidating. Yeah, Dancing with the Stars, because racing, that's what I did. That's what I do. Right, that was my life. So I was born for. I looked forward to the Indy 500. I was dreading every time I went on stage on Dancing with the Stars.
Why did you do it then?
I don't know. Somebody talked me into it. It was Elio's fault. Elio talked me into
he
it.
did it as well.
Yeah, he did, and he won it, which he likes to remind me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's look. When I've been racing my entire life, so like I'm used to that. But before the show, I mean, I'm a 5'10" white guy from Canada. Like this was my dance experience before the show, and so they're like, "Hey, just hop on stage. It's just you and like 11 million of your closest friends watching at home." That was terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Well, you crushed it.
Thank you. Tequila helped.
Oh, I could imagine.
That was the secret.
Yeah. Last question. You don't actually have to answer it, but I feel like I have to ask. Formula One or IndyCar?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. Beautiful.
And with that, thank you so much for joining us. This was an
course.
incredible conversation. You're doing amazing things. We love watching you just shine. So thanks
Appreciate
for being
it.
here.
Thanks for
Enjoy
having
the
us,
rest
guys.
of the weekend.
You too. Enjoy the race, guys.
Thank you so much.